Hello and welcome to another episode of Game Theory, the number one MMA DFS prep show in all of the land. I am your host, M.O.N.K, aka the Monkmatician. And in this very episode, guys and girls, we've got a banger of a pay-per-view card to go over this week after the much-needed but long week off. We've got UFC 287 headlined by Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira. We've also got Raul Rosas Jr. We've got a ton of fights. We've got Rob Font, Adrian Yanez. We've got Gilbert Burns, Jorge Masvidal. We've got the return of Chase Sherman, who just got a new opponent. All that and more on today's episode, guys. So we will go through each and every fight from a stats-heavy DFS perspective. Before we get into that, guys, please check out dfsarmy.com. Use code M.O.N.K. Save yourself I think it's 10%, I'm not sure, but save yourself some money off a VIP package today. Guys, baseball just started up. There's tons of other sports other than MMA that you could be raking the money in when it comes to DFS. So get on over there, dfsarmy.com. Tons of coaches, tons of smart people in the Discord giving you the best possible advice so you can win that money. And I think that's it, guys. Without further ado, the show's going to look different this week. Hopefully you guys like it. It's no more spreadsheet. I'm just going to warn you. So if you want the spreadsheet, check out the description below. Patreon will be in my link, or in the description below, rather. And yeah, that's where you'll be able to find all the spreadsheet stuff. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the new format. Let me know in the comments below. And without further ado, let's get right into UFC 287. Fight! And here we are, guys. Fight number one, UFC 287. Hope you like the new look of things. Again, let me know in the comments below. And let me know if there's a stat that I left off that you really miss and you'd really like to see. There's always room to cram some more stats on the screen for sure. Let's get us started, guys. First fight of the night. We've got Sam Hughes going against Jacqueline Amorim. 7,200 for Sam Hughes. Amorim, $9,000, guys. If you'll notice, let's just go over it real quick. On the top, right next to the salaries, I have all of their measurables and pertinent information: height, let's see, reach, age, stance. If you'll notice, I have 4 different records. Pro is obviously pro record. UFC is obviously UFC. L5 is their last 5 fights across any promotion. And then exact record means if you see the numbers to my left and to my right on the yellow line, 3 rounds strawweight fight, for instance, that means anytime someone's had a 3-round strawweight fight or whatever those numbers correlate to for the fight that we're on, that's what that record is. So for exactly 3-round strawweight fights, Sam Hughes is 2-4. And then we've got the the means of victory over there: 1 KO win, 1 KO loss, and these are strictly UFC stats. And then the last thing, AWI is ass whoop index, guys. The higher that number is, the more they whoop ass in general over the course of their career, meaning the more that the more dominant they win is what I'm trying to say. 0 is a perfectly even draw, and then below 0, obviously they're getting their ass whooped. So that's the little breakdown we've got for the new format. Let's get right into it. This will be the longest slide now, probably overall. We've got overall pacing, how many points they score per minute. Sam Hughes scores 3.1 points a minute, allows 3.2. When she's at distance, she's getting outstruck 1.78 to 2.47 is what her opponents are scoring on her per minute. That's DraftKings points per minute. When she's inside the distance, she scores 3.69 and gets hit 3.82 points a minute. When she does win, that's only 2 wins. As I should also say, all stats are according to the exact record. So only, in this case, strawweight 3-round fight. If for some reason Sam Hughes would have fought at, women's flyweight or had a 5-round fight, those would not count for this fight. DraftKings points per win, 106. Her opponents score 26 when she wins, and she scores 26 when she loses, allowing almost 95. Let's see, we've got some actual stats here. Almost 4 strikes landed per minute. 47.8% takedown defense. That is not good. She spent 37% of her total fight time fighting in the distance, and 80% she's controlled 80% of all grappling time. She's got a decent ceiling of 121, floor of 37. One of her 2 wins over 100, and then average bonus points per win 37.5. Her strength of schedule is decent at 72.98. That is out of 100. You want it to be over 70, and Sam Hughes is. Her last 5 opponents record, and she has made optimal in 2 of her 5 fights since Excuse me, since 2021. There we go. Amorim has no UFC stats at all. She has no Dana White Contender Series stats. That's why all of these are 0. She has a ceiling and floor, but that's just the average for the weight class. Her strength of schedule is not good, guys. 49.9. Like I said, you want this to be about 70. We're at 49.9. Her last 5 opponents' record is 12-14. Also not good, and obviously hasn't had any fights. She's 6-0 in her pro career. I'm probably favoring Amorim here, but honestly, guys, Sam Hughes at 7,200 might be a deal going against someone with only 6 fights. I mean, come on, we've got a huge discrepancy in experience here, and Sam Hughes is a UFC veteran. Even though she's 2-4, she has 6 UFC fights, guys. So I'm not counting Sam Hughes out at all, especially when it comes to DraftKings. She's only 7,200, and there's a few guys towards the top end of the salaries that I will be interested in. So I got to have some of these lower salaried fighters. Sam Hughes not necessarily the worst option, guys, making it, like I said, optimal 2 out of 5 fights against a UFC newcomer. 40% win rate for those newcomers. So, like I said, this will hopefully be the longest one of the show since I had to explain everything. But that said, let's move on to the next fight. Fight! Shah Elan Nuerdanbieke going against Steve Garcia Jr. Shah Elan's 8,900. Garcia is 73. Let's start with the underdog here, guys. 30 years old, going against 28-year-old the Wolverine for Shah Elan. Southpaw versus Orthodox here. Garcia is 13-5 as a pro. He has had one 3-round featherweight fight in his UFC career. Even though he has had 4 UFC fights in which he's 2-2, only one of them has been a 3-round featherweight fight. Now you're saying he's fought at featherweight in all his fights. Okay, but someone's missed weight. I'm not counting catchweight fights. I do not count catchweight fights in this. We're just giving it a shot, guys. I'm trying to get as exact as possible. Like in science experiments, you want all the variables that you can control. Well, right now it's 3-round featherweights that I can control, so that's what we're looking at, stats for those kind of fights. Steve Garcia, wow. Apparently he fought Chase Hooper, was his one featherweight fight, because we're going to have to throw all these stats out, guys. 27 points a minute. 32 points a minute inside the distance. He put up 132 in his win over Chase Hooper. Very, very impressive. I think he scored 3 knockdowns. It says he has no losses. Again, that's only 3-round featherweight fights. So he is 2-2 in the UFC, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, guys. I mean, 19 strikes a minute. Like I said, we're throwing all these numbers right out the window when his first round win over Chase Hooper. It's like 2 minutes worth of data. Here's one that we're not throwing out. Strength of schedule, 64.65. Not the best. Again, you want to be at 70. His last 5 opponent record, 47-22, and he did make the optimal lineup in his one 3-round featherweight fight, which again was against Chase Hooper, in which he scored 132 points. So a lot of what we have, you're going to have to do your tape on Steve Garcia. Personally, without doing any tape, I'm already leaning to the Shah Elan side, not just for the betting odds or the pricing here, but Shah Elan 5'8", so a few inches shorter than Steve Garcia. 6-inch reach disadvantage. He is 2 years younger, and the Orthodox fighter. He is 3-1 in 3-round featherweight fights. Excuse me. His overall pacing, Shah Elan scores 4.2 points per minute, while allowing just 2.39. So you see 2 numbers in each category. That's what our guy that we're talking about has scored versus what opponents are scoring against him. I should have said that at the beginning. So at distance, Shah Elan 2.28 points a minute, getting outstruck, but just barely. 2.46 is what he allows. But inside the distance is where Nuerdanbieke shines, 4.5 points per minute, while allowing far less than 1.85 points a minute inside the distance. When he wins over his 3-round featherweight fights, 105 is what he puts up, allowing just 27, and he scores 29 in a loss. It's average, while his opponent, though, in his one loss, scored only 58 points. So some spectacular defense there from Shah Elan. Striking wise, not anything to write home about. 2.17 points a minute. Takedown defense is 40. That is not good. But here's where it gets interesting. Nuerdanbieke has fought 57% of his total fight time inside the distance, and he's controlled 82% of that grappling time. The ceiling for the Wolverine here is 110. A floor of 29, about average, maybe a little bit better. 2 of his 3 wins, he has scored over 100 points. And let's see. average bonus points per win of 50. So he's getting some finishes. Strength of schedule is not good. It's even a point worse than Steve Garcia's here at 63.13. Last 5 opponent record there. And the Wolverine has made the optimal lineup twice in 4 fights since 2021, guys. So both of these guys making optimal lineups when they fight 3-round featherweight fights. I don't mind seeing that. I think this is a good fight to target. Like I said, I'm leaning the Wolverine here, but this is not a pick show. I'll give you my picks, but this is not a pick show. This is a stat show. I'm trying to present the most pertinent information to you guys so you can pair it with your fight tape and make the proper decisions when it comes to placing bets, making picks, or most important to this show, making your DraftKings lineup. So I like Shailan at 8,900. I don't mind the fact that he's put up over triple digits in 2 of his 3 wins. I do like to see that. So I'm hoping for an inside the distance finish here, someone scoring well, and I will have some of Steve Garcia as well. So that's it for this one. On to the next. Fight! Next up, we have Ignacio Bahamondes, one of the most fun names to say on the entire card, going against Trey Ogden. We'll start with the favorite Bahamondes, $9,400, guys. He's going to be 4 inches taller and have about 3.5-inch reach advantage. He's going to be 8 years younger. And I have a ton of age stats here. This one is at catchweight, 160, but it would be at lightweight if it wasn't on short notice. So lightweight, let's see, 25-year-olds are 8-6 at the lightweight division, and when they fight someone older than them, they are 8-5. And let's see, Ogden here is 33 years old. 33-year-olds have a 9-8 record at lightweight since 2021. And when they fight someone younger than them, they are 5-8. So obviously, nothing that really is too shocking there. The younger guy usually wins. Bahamondes, 3.83 points a minute, allowing almost 3 back at him. At distance, he scores very well, 3.6 a minute, 1 point more than his opponents put up on him. And even inside the distance, over 4 points per minute. He's outscoring his opponents from every category, which is what we like to see. DraftKings points per win. 1 win, actually, at catchweight. Bahamondes has 2 fights at catchweight. He's missed weight, and I think his opponent missed weight in the other fight. But either way, this is his 3rd fight at catchweight. So these are 3-round catchweight stats for Ignacio Bahamondes. In his 1 catchweight win, 99 points is what he scored. Allowed just 25. He put up 48 in his loss. I believe it was to McDessie. And McDessie scored 84 in that one. Bahamondes, 9 strikes per minute at catchweight, 75% takedown defense, has spent only 11% of his fight time inside the distance, but he's controlled 82.5% of that fight time. Ceiling and floor is just what he scored and gave up because he's only got 1 fight. Did not score over 100. 45 points is what he put up bonus points in his win. Strength of schedule overall, now this one does go outside of catchweight. This is just his last 5 fights. 72.76, a respectable strength of schedule, but he has yet to make the optimal lineup at catchweight. And at 9,400, guys, I mean, I like Ignacio, as much as the next guy or girl, but man, it's going to be hard to get to him this week, in my opinion. At 9,400, that's a bit much. Trey Ogden, 2.75 points a minute, allowing only 2.3. He's getting outscored at distance, 2 points to 2.2, but inside the distance, 2.64 to 1.2. So he has great defense, not allowing a ton of points at all, but he's also not scoring anything. Like, these numbers are extremely low. As you can tell, DraftKings points per win, 64 is what he put up. And now he does not have any catchweight fights, so these are his lightweight stats. That is the one exception. If I don't have any stats at catchweight or whatever, I will make adjustments to show you something. So these are Trey Ogden's lightweight stats. 3.73 strikes landed per minute, 100% takedown defense. He spent more time fighting inside the distance than Bahamondes, but he only controls 33.5% of that grappling time. His ceiling and floor is just what he's scored and given up. 30 points is what 30 bonus points. Let's see. Strength of schedule is 10 points lower than Bahamondes, guys. 10 points lower, 62.5. His last 5 opponent record is 52-32, and he has yet, just like Bahamondes, yet to make the optimal lineup as far as the respective weight classes go. Bahamondes could have made the optimal lineup in a different weight class, or when he was actually at lightweight, and I could look that up, but I'm not going to. Actually, you know what? Let's do it. Bahamondes, yes, he was one-time optimal out of 3 fights, but it was at lightweight. It was not at catchweight. So that's just the kind of stuff that we're going to be going over today. I want to get very specific when it comes to the variables of fights. I just want to give it a try, see if it actually works. I should also mention Ogden, 6,800. I don't know if I'm going to have much of him either. Bahamondes can get hit, though, and Ogden is a tough son of a bitch, is what he showed. So maybe I'll have a bit of Ogden. His ass whoop index 1.95 compared to 8.45 for Bahamondes. So I like Bahamondes for the win, but I don't know how much I'm going to be able to roster him. Cash-wise, maybe not a bad option, guys. Let's get to the fourth fight of the night.
Fight!
All right, here we've got Lupita Godinez going against Cynthia Calvillo, guys. Calvillo, she is, in her last 5, 1-4. Not a good look. She's 6-5-1 in the UFC, but in her exact record, meaning 3-round strawweight fights, she's 3-1. Now, granted, she's been at flyweight or it's been catchweight a few times since the last time she fought at strawweight, so I'm not even convinced that Calvillo makes weight. So keep an eye on that. This is one, much like Alex Perez 2 weeks ago, you're going to have to keep an eye on Cynthia Calvillo, guys, because even at strawweight, I think she missed once, maybe twice, and then she went up to flyweight. So this is her first time back. She's only 7K this week. Ass whoop index of 7.2 in these strawweight fights. She is 35 years old. 35-year-old strawweights have a record of 3-5, and when they fight someone younger than them, 1-3 is their record. So Calvillo not scoring very well at all. 2.5 points a minute, giving up 2 a minute. Less than 2 points per minute at distance, and 3.22 inside the distance. So she's outscoring her opponents barely in a couple of categories, but none of her points are really significant enough to land her on the optimal lineup. DraftKings points per win, 83. I mean, at 7K, I guess we've got a shot at the optimal lineup, but it is not looking pretty. Averaging 32 points when she loses. Almost 4 points a minute is what, or 4 strikes a minute is what she lands. Sub 70 takedown defense, so not great, but not the worst. She spends 30% of her fight time fighting inside the distance and controls a whopping 88.5% of that grappling time. That is a fantastic number. She's got almost 100-point ceiling, 32-point floor, a bit better than average. One time she did score over triple digits. That would assuredly land her on the optimal lineup at 7K. 55 bonus points per win, 68, almost 69 strength of schedule. No fights, 0 for 0 optimal. Like I said, no strawweight fights in a few years, at least 3 years. I think it was 2019 last I looked. The favorite, Lupita Godinez, she will be 2 inches shorter, a little bit, 3 inches reach disadvantage. Same exact record. When I say exact, I mean exact at strawweight 3 rounds. She's also 3-1. In the UFC, she's 3-3. Has an 18.93 ass whoop index. That's a big, big number, especially at strawweight, guys. She is $9,200 this week. Can she pay it off? Well, she scores almost 5 points a minute and allows 1.5. Very good. Scores 2.2 at distance, almost 5 inside the distance, and allows 0.77 points when fighting inside the distance. These numbers are fantastic. 114 on average per win. 44 when she loses, and her opponents score only 69 points on average. 2.44 points or strikes landed per minute, 80% takedown defense, 73% of her fight time inside the distance, and she controls 80% of that fight time. So 2 grapplers here, but obviously Godinez, getting it done way more inside the distance than Calvillo is. Her ceiling for Godinez, 134, has a floor of 44, which is fantastic. 2 of her 3 wins at strawweight have scored over 100 points, 50 bonus points per win, 66 strength of schedule, and she's made the optimal lineup twice out of 4 fights at strawweight since 2021, guys. I love Lupita Godinez here. The only issue is Calvillo really doesn't allow any points, especially at strawweight, but she hasn't fought in strawweight since she was like 31, 32 years old. She's now 35. I want to see what the weight cut is going to do to her, if she even makes weight. So I'm obviously favoring Godinez here. I was hoping I could play Calvillo as a punt play to save some salary, but man, it's going to be pretty difficult to get to Calvillo. Even if you think she wins, she does not score very well at all. So it's going to be a tough one. Pick is going to be Godinez, but I don't know how much I'm going to be able to roster her in GPPs. Love Godinez for cash. But that said, she also makes mistakes, so Maybe don't count Cynthia out completely. She will be extremely low owned this week. Fight! And here we've got the return of Joe Pyfer going against the old vet Gerald Meerschaert. We'll start with Meerschaert, $7,500. He is 10-7 in the UFC, and all 17 of those fights have been 3-round middleweight fights. So we have a huge sample size to work with. 3.48 ass whoop index, 9 sub wins, 3 KO TKO losses. Those are the most pertinent stats in my opinion. Overall pacing for Meerschaert, he scores 3.1 points a minute, but he does get outstruck just barely. He's actually outpointing his opponents at distance, but inside the distance it's very close. 3.4 basically each, 3.5 scored for him and allowed. DraftKings points per win over 10 wins, only 93.81. Averages 21 per loss and gives up almost 98 points per loss. So doesn't really score the best, but at 7,500, a 90-point score might be able to get it done. It just depends on the rest of the card. Meerschaert, the grappler, 3 strikes landed per minute, only a 29% takedown defense, but he loves being on the ground. That's what he wants. He's begging you to take him down. He fights almost 50% of his time inside the distance, controls 45% of that time, has a 109-point ceiling, 43-point floor, so not too bad. 4 of his 10 wins over 100 points. So that's not a great number, but it's not terrible. 66 bonus points per win, so he is out here getting finishes. Strength of schedule is very good, 74, almost 75. His last 5 opponent record, 100 and 32. And he has made the optimal lineup in 2 of his past 5 fights, guys, since 2021. You can never count Gerald Meerschaert out. Bottom line, you cannot have 0% of Gerald Meerschaert in any fight ever. I don't care how old or young he is. I don't care how mismatched you think the fight is. Even if against a crazy good looking prospect named Joe Pyfer, you got to have some Meerschaert in there. But Pyfer absolutely ran through Alan Amedovski in his debut fight. He's 8,700 this week, 4 points a minute. You got to throw these stats out. Alan Amedovski is terrible, guys. Terrible. He didn't do anything against Pyfer. Pyfer finished him, I believe, in the first round. He put up 106 points, basically 3.57 points or strikes landed per minute. Scored almost 10 points a minute inside the distance. Gave up 0. Controlled 100% of the very little grappling time that was in that fight. His strength of schedule, one of the most pertinent stats on this sheet, is only 57.78. You can round up to 58 if it makes you feel better, but that is a terrible, terrible number. Last 5 opponent records, 40 and 21. Pyfer got the first round finish, but failed to make the optimal lineup. I believe he was like $9,700 against Amedovski, the highest. I think it was the first time we'd ever seen the $9,700 salary, actually, since they changed salaries back in 2021. So yeah, it was annoying when it happened, and he did not make the optimal lineup because he scored just 105 points. I'm going to pick Pyfer to win because I just think he gets it done against Meerschaert here. Meerschaert's been finished in several fights, 4 times in his UFC career. Only been to decision, in his 7 losses, 3 of them KOs, 1 of them sub, and 3 decisions is what I'm trying to say. So, again, don't count Meerschaert out. The pick is Pyfer. I will have some of him rostered at $8,700 because I think he could pay off that salary, coming in $1,000 cheaper. If he puts up 105 in this one, I think he's got a decent shot. But yeah, never count out Meerschaert. Never, ever, ever. Fight! And we've got our first replacement fight of the card, guys. It was just announced today. Chase Sherman was supposed to fight Chris Barnett. I had his picture in here. He was upside down, mid-backflip and everything. It was fantastic. You guys would have loved it. He's out of the fight. I have not heard why. I have no idea. But I do know that Carl Williams is stepping in on very short notice to take on Chase Sherman. And I absolutely love the Carl Williams side here. I mean, was there not to like? He just fought Lucas Brzeski, who's probably the same quality as Chase Sherman. They're both bad heavyweights. Excuse me, and I think you can just group them into the put them in a folder called bad heavyweights, whether one's better than the other. Chase Sherman's probably better than Brzeski, but neither one is good. Williams had a fantastic fight against Brzeski. 130 is what he put up. spent 71% of the 15 minutes fighting inside the distance, and he controlled 95.5% of that grappling time, guys. Here's the pacing numbers I want to get into. We're not going to go through all the stats. 6.67 points a minute is what Williams scored. 4.37 at distance. That's a good number. Inside the distance, 6.06. Meanwhile, Chase Sherman gives up 6.19 points inside the distance, and this is over 14 UFC fights. So a huge sample size. 14 3-round heavyweight fights. Sherman gives up 6.19 points a minute, which is one of the highest numbers on the entire card. So obviously I'm favoring Williams here. Now Chase Sherman has gone from being the favorite at 8,800 to being like a plus 350 underdog, and his salary is still $8,800, guys. Chase Sherman has literally become unplayable. I guess if he were to win, no, even if he wins, none of these numbers are even 3 points a minute. He scores 103 per win, barely, not even, and he's at $8,800. I don't think that's going to make optimal. I would consider Chase Sherman unplayable. I think he's going to get thrashed around inside the distance. I think Williams is going to be able to control him for the whole fight, and so do the odds makers. Williams comes in at $9,500 this week. I think it's worth it. I think there's value on this number, and I think he can hit 130 points again. I mean, he could easily control and take down Chase Sherman time and time again until 15 minutes is up. Sherman has a decent takedown defense, 66.67, but Williams is just unstoppable. As you can hear, a truck of some kind backing up in the background. Yeah, I would consider Chase unplayable, but what if Williams only has one UFC fight, guys. What if the hype is not as real as we thought and Sherman ends up knocking him out? Maybe I'll have a little bit of Sherman at 8, but that price is crazy. That price is crazy. It's going to be real difficult for me to get to Chase Sherman at the odds he's at now for the salary he's at of 8,800. My goodness. I'm not going to say he's unplayable, but he's as close to unplayable as you can get. Fight! And here we've got another women's strawweight fight. I think there's 3 of them on this card. Some of them are pretty good fights, including this one. Luana Pinheiro, who's 2-0 in the UFC, 2-0 in 3-round strawweight fights, going against Waterson-Gomez, excuse me. Michelle is 6-6 in the UFC, 4-4 in 3-round strawweight fights. Let's start with the favorite, 8,600, Luana Pinheiro. One decision. I think she won one fight by DQ, if I'm not mistaken. ASWIP index of 14.37, which is a very high number for a women's fight, very high number for a women's strawweight fight. So both of these stats are all based on her 2 fights at strawweight. 4.6 points a minute. She gives up far less than 2. At distance, she scores well, she scores okay. I'm not going to say well. 2.54 points a minute, but she is outscoring her opponents at distance significantly. Inside the distance, it's not even close. 12.27 points per minute, guys. What's her total fight time? Let me just look. I have my spreadsheet over here. You can't see it. Her total fight time, if you'll just bear with me while I vamp. UFC fight time. That's Michelle Gomez, Waterson-Gomez. 19.27 minutes. So 20 minutes of fight time, 12.27 points per minute inside the distance. That's crazy. 104 per win, and she has yet to suffer a loss. 4.6 strikes landed per minute. No takedown defense because no one has attempted a takedown on her. That will probably change against Michelle Waterson-Gomez here. Has spent almost 20% of her time fighting inside the distance, but she's controlled almost 80% of that fight time. Almost a 130-point ceiling. One of her wins over 160 points on average, bonus points rather, per win. Strength of schedule is lacking, 62.3. Again, you want this number over 70, and we are pretty far from that number as of now. And lastly, Pinheiro has made the optimal lineup in one of her 2 UFC fights since 2021. So I don't mind the Pinheiro play here against the veteran Michelle Waterson-Gomez. Now, can you play Michelle Waterson-Gomez here? She is 37 years old, just signed a 6 or 8 fight deal with the UFC. This is where maybe I'll insert a picture of Steve Brule like doing this, because who the hell knows why that happened. Either way, she scores 2.9 points per minute overall, allowing 2.6 inside or at distance. is basically zero, 1.74 points a minute, but she doesn't allow anything either. Inside the distance, 3.5 points a minute. So she's outscoring her opponents everywhere, averaging only 82 points per win. That is not good. Not good enough. Even at 7,600, that is not going to make the optimal lineup, guys. 25 points on average per loss. Her numbers are all just middle of the road to below average, Michelle Waterson here. So I think if she does win, it's going to take a bit better of a performance than usual to make the optimal lineup. She is 1-4 in her last 5, so things have not been going her way. Her one win was against Angela Hill. That was a very, very close split decision victory, guys. So you can look at the rest of these stats. I won't go over them. The only one I will mention is her strength of schedule is very good. 75.42, possibly the highest number we've seen on this show so far. So you got to play a little bit, I think, of Michelle Waterson-Gomez, but I think Luana Pinheiro should be able to get it done. I think she should be able to get it done inside the distance, and even if not, she could score very, very well if she's able to get Michelle Waterson-Gomez down and control her. That said, Michelle Waterson-Gomez doesn't really give up a ton of points on the ground, like at all. Even in her career, it's like less than 0.6 per minute. So this is going to be an interesting fight. We're going to see if Luana can get the game into where she wants to fight it. Fight! Next fight, we've got a banger. The return of Kelvin Gastelum. He's been off for at least a year and a half, pretty much. Going against Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis coming off of a Joaquin Buckley win. Before that, a loss to Jack Hermanson, but he's been on fire in the UFC. He's only $8,000 this week. He is the dog. 4-1 is what he is in the UFC, and 4-1 is what he is in 3-round middleweight fights. Scoring almost 3 points a minute, 2.8 when he's at distance, and 3.71 inside the distance, outscoring his opponents in every category, close in a couple of them, but inside the distance, it's about 1.5 points difference. Curtis, on average, only 97 points per win, so he just can't quite get over that 100-point barrier, even though he does. Actually, that's not true. He has put up over 102 of his 4 UFC wins. Scores only 17 when he loses, but gives up only 70 points per loss. Average significant strikes landed per minute, 5.5. A 100% takedown defense. 7.78% of total fight time has happened inside the distance, and he's controlled just 38% of that grappling time. His ceiling is pretty low, only 109 points. His floor is also very low, 17. 65 bonus points per win. His strength of schedule is very good, 75. And he has made the optimal lineup in 2 of his 5 fights since January 1st, 2021. Guys, that has a lot to do with him being an underdog in a ton of his fights. Since he's been in the UFC, he was plus 260 to Hawes, plus 283 to Allen, and plus 145 to Joaquin Buckley. So, yeah, Chris Curtis, not a stranger to being an underdog, and he does generally perform well in those underdog settings. Kelvin Gastelum, $8,200. Like I said, hasn't fought in forever. In 3-round middleweight fights, he is 5-3, despite being 11-8 in the UFC and 1-4 in his last 5 fights. We got orthodox versus southpaw, and Gastelum's been in the UFC much, much longer than Curtis, but he is 4 years younger at 31 years old. 4-inch reach disadvantage, less than 3 points. Actually, they have the exact same points per minute at middleweight 3-round fights, 2.95, 1.89 at distance, but 4.3 inside the distance. That is where Gastelum tends to shine. At distance, not so much. He's getting knocked down. He's just only 3.43 strikes landed per minute. Has a 75% takedown defense. DraftKings points per win leaves a lot to be desired for Kelvin Gastelum. 88.78 across 5 UFC wins, 3-round middleweight, should be noted. 88.78. Scores only 27 when he loses. Controls 66% of the grappling time. Has a lower ceiling than Chris Curtis, but a 3 times bigger floor. 45 is Kelvin Gastelum's floor, so I feel a little bit safer playing him knowing that. But still, he hasn't fought in a year and a half, and he's only put up over 101 of his 5 UFC wins at middleweight. 41 bonus points per win. Strength of schedule is better by almost a full point than Chris Curtis, and he has made the optimal lineup in his 1 fight. at the weight class since 2021. You absolutely love to see that. Let's see if Kelvin Gastelum can get it done at middleweight again. Last time when he did make the optimal lineup, he only put up 95, and it was against Ian Heinisch. So we know Chris Curtis is a counter striker, and that's pretty much his game. I would not be shocked if this one went all 15 minutes. Either of these guys is easy to get in your lineup, but will they do enough to make optimal? I mean, it's been optimal 3 times between them, so stats would say yes, even though they don't score well. So maybe these guys are sneakily optimal. This one should go under the radar. I think this fight will be under-owned as a whole because Gastelum hasn't fought forever, and Chris Curtis really doesn't score too well. Only 97 points per win. People are going to see that and probably shy away from it. But he is the underdog, so who knows? He may have more ownership than Kelvin Gastelum here, and you might be able to find some leverage there. So that's a long way of saying I think you have to play a little bit of both sides of this fight. Pick's going to be, let's pick Kelvin Gastelum. Why not? Next fight, guys, we are on the main card. Raul Rosas Jr. going against Christian Rodriguez. I'm excited for this one. I'm not going to read all the stats here because Rosas Jr. only has 1 fight. Actually, both of these guys only have 1 UFC fight. Rodriguez happened at catchweight, so I don't even have the stats you see for him are his catchweight stats. Not good. Also, look at his overall pacing. He's getting outscored 3-1 overall. Outscored 3-1 inside the distance. He spent 75% of his 1 UFC fight, or his 2 UFC fights, fighting inside the distance. He controlled 14% of the grappling time, guys. He's giving up 95 per loss. He does have a first-round finish in which he put up 90 bonus points. His strength of schedule is very bad, 54. His last 5 opponents' record, 55-50. That is not good. Has made the optimal lineup in that round 1 victory. But guys, I mean, if we're comparing, little to no UFC experience, look at the numbers here from Rosas. Only 6 points a minute, allowing 10 times less than that. He's scoring 10 times more than his opponents. 6.35 points inside the distance to 0. Controls 100% of the grappling time. 106 is what he put up in his win. Did not make the optimal lineup because he was very, very expensive that week. This week, he's much cheaper, only 9,100. In fact, how expensive was he? I want to say he was like 96. Maybe he was 94. Let's take a look. Oh, wow. I'm very wrong. He was actually cheaper. He's $100 more expensive. He was $9K last time. So I think they're feeding Rodriguez to Rosas Jr. There's no reason they wouldn't want Raul to win this fight and win it, put a stamp on it. So I think he wins first round submission over Christian Rodriguez, who only has 6, or actually he has 9 professional fights. I'm just wrong about a lot of stuff on this one. Either way, hopefully I'm not wrong about my pick. I think, this is a setup fight. Rosas Jr. should sub him in the first round. Let's see the sombrero. Let's see the good celebration. And yeah, that's how we're going to do it. Actually, I really, really like Rosas Jr. for DraftKings, and he might come up again later on in the video, but that's going to be my pick. And yeah, it's going to be very difficult for me to get to Christian Rodriguez at all. Both of these guys are very young. Both of these guys are, Rodriguez is 25. That's a baby when it comes to fighting. And he's 7 years older than Rosas Jr. So unless Raul makes a huge mistake, I'm banking on him to get a round 1 submission. And that'll be that. Probably score over 100 points. And it will be a waiting game to see if he makes the optimal lineup. Next fight, we've got a decent welterweight banger here. Kevin Holland, who is 2-0 in 3-round welterweight fights, going against Santiago Ponzinibbio, who is 8-5 in 3-round welterweight fights. Let's start with the underdog. 2.79 points a minute for Ponzi, gets outscored just barely, but gets outscored. 2.65 is what he puts up at distance, and 3.4 inside the distance. But he gives up 6.33 points inside the distance, guys. That is a ton. Ponzinibbio also not doing well overall in his wins, 85 points per win, and this is over 8 3-round welterweight fights. I don't like that number at all. He gives up 95, almost 96 when he loses. Does put up 5 strikes per minute, but only a 58% takedown defense. Has spent just 12% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance, and he only controls 40% of that fight time. His ceiling is a bit low at 109. 3 of 8 wins over 100. So that's pretty decent. 72.6 strength of schedule, and he has made optimal once out of 4 fights since 2021. Again, he is 8-5 in 3-round welterweight fights. $6,900 this week. You're basically rostering him if you think Kevin Holland shits the bed. And I don't really mind that at all. I don't mind 10-15% probably of Ponzinibbio, because who knows with Kevin Holland. I mean, he should come out here and look good against Ponzinibbio, because Ponzi did not look great against Moreno. Actually, I think he was losing that fight until he wasn't, if my memory serves correctly. But yeah, that one was at catchweight, so those stats aren't even included in this one. Kevin Holland, let's look at his stats. It's 9,300. You're paying a lot for Kevin Holland. 4 points a minute. 3.4 is what people are scoring on him. At distance, 3.7. Inside the distance, 3.7 as well. But he gets over 10.5 points scored on him inside the distance, which is a comically ridiculous number. 94 points per win and no losses yet in 3-round welterweight fights. 7 strikes landed a minute, 50% takedown defense. Doesn't control much of the grappling time. 72 strength of schedule. 104-39 is his last 5 opponents' record. And he has yet to make the optimal lineup in 3-round welterweight fights. I think Kevin Holland wins this one, but I just don't know how either guy scores well. I'll probably be fading this fight as a whole, and I'm definitely looking to target different people in the 9K range. Rooting for Holland. I don't mind Ponzinibbio either. I always like watching him fight, but neither guy really scores well at all for DraftKings. So I'll try to focus elsewhere. Fight! Here we've got another bantamweight banger. 3-round bantamweight fight between Rob Font and Adrian Yanez. 8,500 for Yanez, 7,700 for Font. Font, let's see. Was his last fight the fight that he absolutely took a beating from Marlon Chito Vera? Yes, it was. It sure was. 271 strikes actually is what he landed. Actually, he put a beating on Vera, and Vera didn't even look like he got touched. And then Rob Font, I believe his face is in the picture behind me from that fight. It is a little bit swollen there. But Adrian Yanez, 3.65 points a minute. You know what he's going to do. He's a fantastic boxer, great footwork, great striking. 3.69 is what he scores at distance. Inside the distance, it's basically negligible, 2.5 points. Outscoring his opponents from everywhere, which is important. Only 91 points per win, guys. 91 points per win over 4 UFC wins. Actually, that's not true. He has 5 UFC wins, but only 4 at bantamweight. 1 was at catchweight. Which one was it? I believe it was his last one. Yeah, Tony Kelly missed weight. So last fight stats are not included in here. He is 4-0 in 3-round bantamweight fights. 6.27 points or strikes landed per minute is what you would expect from someone like Adrian Yanez. 100% takedown defense. Interesting. Hardly any grappling time, and he doesn't control hardly any of that grappling time. 107 ceiling, not great. 50% of his wins, so 2 of 4 wins over 100. 58 points, bonus points per win. 66, almost 67 strength of schedule. But he's only made the optimal lineup once out of 3 3-round bantamweight fights since 2021. And let's see, that would have been the Tony Kelly. No, that would not have been the Tony Kelly fight. That was catchweight. Would it be Randy Costa? Would probably be Randy Costa, which he scored 105 at 9K. Meanwhile, Rob Font, decent value this week if you like Font. 3.5 points per minute, 2.76 at distance. Inside the distance, over 4, but people are scoring, he's getting outscored, 5 points to 4 inside the distance. That said, Adrian Yanez is not going to do much inside the distance. He scores 2.5 points a minute. I wouldn't be too worried about that if I was Rob Font. I'd be more worried about getting knocked down. DraftKings points per win, which Rob Font does not have the greatest chin. Let's actually take a quick look. How many times has Rob Font been knocked down? And this is in his UFC career, not, 3-round whatevers. Bantamweights. Where are my numbers? 6 times he has knocked down, 5 times he has been knocked down. So one of the worst chindexes on the entire card. One of the worst chindexes in this past 5 fights on the entire card for Rob Font. I think he got knocked down, 3 times by Chito Vera, twice by Jose Aldo. So yeah, it's going to be his last 2. He's been knocked down 5 times, and now he's fighting a guy that, knocks people down. How many knockdowns does Yanez have in his career? 5. Has one of the best power indexes on the entire card indices. Should we use that word? Power indices. I like that. Yeah, 1.95 doesn't sound like a lot, but it's good for third best overall. That said, you can look at the rest of these stats. I've babbled long enough about this one. I like Yanez here. That said, I will have both guys rostered. I think the winner has a great chance of making the optimal lineup, whether it's 8,500 or 7,700. I think the winner could score over 100 points, if not, close, 95 to 100, if not over, I should say. And I will have both guys rostered here, probably about an equal amount, to be completely honest. So I love this fight from a fan standpoint, and I really like this fight from a DraftKings standpoint as well. I know the numbers aren't the highest on the entire show by any means, but one of these guys is probably going to sleep. Fight! Here we are, the co-main event of the evening between Gilbert Burns and Jorge Masvidal. I mean, what is there to say? Burns is the most expensive fighter on the card for a reason. I mean, 6.4 ass whoop index. He is 14-5 in the UFC, 6-1 in 3-round welterweight fights. 36 years old, not a spring chicken, but Masvidal, 38 years old. He's 5-3 in 3-round welterweight fights. And the bottom line is, guys, I mean, let's look at the ages here. Welterweight, let's see, 36 years old at welterweight, 60%. They're 6-4, 60% win rate. 38 years old, 4-9, 30.77% win rate. When 36-year-olds fight someone older, they're 4-1 since 2021, 80% win rate. When 38-year-olds fight someone younger, 3-9, 25% win rate. Guys, the only stat, and it's not on here, is how is a guy that went 3 rounds with Khamzat Chimaev going to lose to Jorge Masvidal? I just really don't see it happening. I'm all over Gilbert Burns on this one. For GPPs, I don't know, because in 3-round welterweight fights, Gilbert Burns scores a whopping 81.84 points per win, less than 3 points per minute, less than 2 points per minute at distance, even though he knocks people down all the time. But a lot of those might be 5-round fights, though. 3.5 points per minute is what he scores inside the distance. When he loses, he gives up over 100. Only 3.5 strikes landed per minute, 55% takedown defense, controls 65% of the grappling time he's involved in. Only one win, let's see. What am I looking at here? Only 2 wins. There we go. 2 wins over 100 points at welterweight, 3 rounds. 77 strength of schedule is very, very good. 0 of 3 times optimal at the weight class at 3-round fights. Very subpar stats, suboptimal stats, if you will, from Gilbert Burns. I think he wins the fight. I just don't think... Actually, man, I don't know. Because Masvidal, let's see. Actually, in 3-round welterweight fights, only gives up 72 points per loss. Scores 109, almost 110 per win, 3 points a minute. I mean, he's outscoring Gilbert almost everywhere, and now I have something in my eye. Outscoring Gilbert almost everywhere, but Masvidal does get tremendously outscored inside the distance by a point, 4.4 to 3.4. Lands almost 5 strikes a minute, 62% takedown defense. Has a much higher ceiling than Burns, but half the floor that Burns has. 4 of his 5 wins in 3-round welterweight fights have been over 100 points. He's going to need one of those in this one, man. 80 points per win, bonus points rather, 79 strength of schedule. So, Masvidal, not the best record in his last 5, 2-3, but he has probably the best strength of schedule on the entire card. Goes to Jorge Masvidal. Again, how's a guy who went 3 rounds with Khamzat Chimaev in a banger of a fight going to lose to Jorge Masvidal? I just think Burns takes this. I will probably be fading Burns, though. He just does not score well. That said, though, Masvidal and is 38 years old, could get finished early. Yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of Burns. I like Burns for cash. I will have a bit of Masvidal as well. Probably play the ownership game with him, see what he comes in at. I'm wondering, I mean, for me, I probably can't go higher than 10-15% Masvidal, to be completely honest, but I just think Burns absolutely runs through him for the most part. And yeah, that's how we're going to play this one. So it's probably going to be a fade overall. It's going to be tough to get to Burns, but man, if he just runs through Masvidal, this could be a first minute win. You know what I'm saying? And score a gazillion points. So I think you got to have room for some Burns at the top end of your lineup. Here we go. Finally, the main event of the evening. Alex Pereira going against Israel Adesanya. 7,900 for Pereira, 8,300 for Izzy. Let's start with Izzy, the challenger. This is a 5-round middleweight fight. Izzy is 8-1. 8-1 in 5-round middleweight fights, but that one is against Alex Pereira, who is 1-0 in these exact circumstances. 5-round middleweight fight. Adesanya does not score well, guys. I've been telling you to fade him for 4, 5, 6 fights now, maybe at this point. My advice is not going to change. 2.32 points a minute, 2.19 points at distance, 2 points inside the distance. I mean, he's getting outscored inside the distance, but his defense is spectacular everywhere else. DraftKings points per win, just 87. 87. Scores 57 in his one loss. That was against Alex here. 3.95 strikes landed per minute. 80% takedown defense. Spends 15% of his time fighting inside the distance. Controls only 34% of that time. His ceiling is a very low 107. I guess it's not very low compared to his competitor, but it is pretty low. No wins. And at 5-round middleweight fights, no wins over 100 points. 0%. 40 bonus points per win on average, 76 strength of schedule, and he is 0-4 optimal since 2021 in 5-round middleweight fights. Guys, win or lose, I don't like Adesanya in DraftKings. I haven't liked him for several fights now, and like I said, that advice is not going to change. Big fade on the favorite again, Israel Adesanya. 7,900 for Alex Pereira. I'm much more interested in him, but that said, I'm not very interested in him. Both guys are 6'4", 80-inch reach, 35 years old to 33 years old. Pereira, 2.37 points a minute. All these stats are from the Israel Adesanya fight. 2.37 points a minute, 2 points at distance. He was losing that fight until he wasn't. I'm not going to read all these. I mean, 4 strikes landed per minute, 75% takedown defense, controlled only 7% of the grappling time, and he's the one that landed a takedown, I believe. No wins over 100, 74.68 strength of schedule. This is going to be a banger of a fight, and I cannot wait to see it. That said, I will not have hardly any of this fight in DraftKings. I will be well under the field for this main event, as I am always under the field in Adesanya main events. And it's been paying off constantly, time and time again. Alex Pereira won last fight, did not make the optimal lineup. He only scored 92 points in that fight. He is the underdog here, so I don't mind that. If I do have ownership of this fight, I will have more Alex Pereira than I will Israel Adesanya. But that said, this fight is getting a big fade from me. I can't wait to watch it. Big DraftKings fade here. And as usual, before we get out of here, let's go over CM M.O.N.K's picks for UFC 287. He's going Sam Hughes upset decision. Shailan Nuerdanbieke by finish. Ignacio Bahamondes decision. Cynthia Calvillo decision underdog win. Joe Pyfer finish. Chase Sherman finish. Whoops. That is against Chris Barnett. Let's see. Hold on. I will just tell you, since I did change it, but I did not grab the screenshot. We've got Carl Williams by finish. Carl Williams by finish over Chase Sherman. Luana Pinheiro decision. Underdog win. Chris Curtis by decision. Raul Rosas Jr. by decision. Kevin Holland by finish. Adrian Yanez decision. Gilbert Burns decision. Hopefully score very well in that decision. And underdog win. Alex Pereira by finish over Israel Adesanya, putting a cap on this tetralogy, quadrilogy, whatever you want to call it. Guys, CM M.O.N.K down here approves of these picks. And if you didn't know, CM M.O.N.K is the thing that I built that makes picks for fights. And finally, the M.O.N.K pick of the week for UFC 287 is going to be Raul Rosas Jr. $9,100 M.O.N.K, the most owned, no-nonsense M.O.N.K pick of the week this week. I think he absolutely rolls Christian Rodriguez. Maybe a takedown, maybe 2 takedowns, maybe. A little bit of ground and pound if we're lucky. And a first round submission victory. Raul Rosas Jr., I don't think we can go wrong here at $9,100. Guys, we did it. That is going to do it. The new and improved, hopefully, at least revamped game theory right here on the Monk Maddox channel. I really hope you had a good time watching the show. I hope, most importantly, it was informative, and hopefully we can make some great decisions this week when it comes to our DFS lineups. Again, check out dfsarmy.com. Use code MONK, M-O.N.K. Save money on a VIP subscription package today. Other than that, guys, Raul Rosas Jr., the Monk pick of the week. We gave you CM Monk's picks. I mean, there's not much left to do. I get to kick back and relax for a few days, getting this content out early for the big pay-per-view, guys. I am very excited for it. Some absolute bangers on this card, and I hope you are too. As usual, I want all of you to enjoy the fights. So, enjoy, and we will see you in the next one.